It's time for another special guest now, and we have a gentleman called Stephen Donald. He's no stranger to the world of show business. He has a new single out. Welcome to the show. This is a Dannison syndicated radio show here in the UK, but goes out across the world. But it's good to have you on.
Oh, thank you very much, Danny. Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. It's great.
It's a pleasure. And a lot of people who I know you're well trained. You've had a bit of television experience, musical theatre as well, and a new single as well. The man in the moon. I know REM sang about the man on the moon, but your new single is Man in the Moon.
Absolutely. I think it's very different than the REM version. Yeah. Oddly enough, this song has had a bit of a journey because I actually wrote it when I was about 16 years old. And I did a few versions of it way back when. I did sort of a few demos, but at that particular time, I always envisaged that it should have like a big band swing sound. And what happened during the whole lockdown is that I revisited some of these old songs that I'd written, and I thought some of them could do with a bit of a lick of paint. And I've been fortunate enough in that I had been previously working with David Stevens, who was the ex-keyboard player with the band The Foundations. He had that big #1 hit, Build Me Up Buttercup. And so we started doing some demos during lockdown, so it was all sort of virtually. And one of those songs was this Man in the Moon, because I just always had this hook. It just had this sort of catchy element to it. And I thought it was almost like an antidote to coming out of lockdown, because it just had that sort of happy, quirky feel. And David did a fabulous arrangement on the track, and we thought maybe it's worthwhile just taking a punt and doing a single and releasing it. So I was then fortunate to get a lot of really, really good musicians on board, courtesy of David's connections as well. And we had Trevor Morell, who was George Michael's drummer and Wham, and he helped with the production of the rhythm track, which was fabulous. The bass player, Randy Hope Taylor, who's worked with the likes of Jamiroquai, did fabulous sort of bass guitar on that. David's wife, Caroline Stevens, a singer in her own right. She's also been a session singer for many people, including Barry Manilow, Dolly Parton. And she put the backing vocals on it, which was like a homage to the Andrews Sisters type vibe. So suddenly we were in a situation where this song, which I'd written way back when, suddenly had this phenomenal arrangement, which I envisaged when I was a teenager. So it was like just fabulous for me to hear it all these years on.
That's ace. And you mentioned your team there. I did an interview with a musician back a few weeks ago, and he worked with the drummer, as you mentioned, in Wham. And yeah, brilliant reports have been getting about the guy you mentioned.
Yeah.
And in my notes it says here that the song's been in the making for a number of years, since 1989. And
Yeah.
I've put it's a very smiley, happy foot toe tapper song.
Yeah, I think that sums it up great. You know, I think the whole notion of this particular song was that it was never really designed to take itself too seriously in the sense that it was supposed to be fun, upbeat, happy, just as I say, this sort of antidote to lockdown. But I was fortunate just to have a stellar lineup of musicians attached to it to make it work.
And do you enjoy working with big bands and orchestras rather than just kind of singing along to an instrumental accompaniment?
It's great. I mean, because this started off just as a small demo. I mean, when I did it originally, my friend Fran Gill, we did a version. I attempted to play a bass guitar at that point, and she played a flute. So it started off quite basic. So to suddenly have this full-on arrangement, yeah, it's super. I mean, obviously, I've not had the option or the to do that live yet. I think, you know, the machinations attached to that would be something else. But yeah, if I ever got the opportunity to gig it with that sort of sound, that would be fabulous.
And is it a fair comment to say, I know you mentioned Andrew Sisters, 1940s, bit of swing, Rat Pack, even
Yeah.
Boobilesque in a way, in parts?
I think so. A few people have said same, and I think, yeah, I think that whole swing sound, obviously, it has got those elements to it. So, yeah, I mean, that's lovely to be considered in the same vein as people like that.
And the song is a gift to your 16-year-old self.
Yes, it very much is, because I always wanted to do this track. The melody had been going around in my head. I'd always I could hear the brass, I could hear the bass, I could hear everything in my head, but at that particular point, never really had the facility to get that sound together. So now that it's come to fruition, it really is. It's just like, yeah, I'm looking back to that young lad and going, yeah, we did it. So it's lovely.
Yeah. Now is the time, as they say. And
Yeah.
I know your stellar kind of musical background. You've been involved in a number of soap operas and West End productions. Just touching on the West End productions, I'm not going to ask you what your most favourite role is today, but I just wanted to ask what your most enjoyable role to date would be.
Well, you mentioned the West End there. I mean, I have to say that, yeah, playing Mickey in Blood Brothers alongside Barbara Dixon and Kiki Dee and the late, great Carl Wayne, who was the lead singer with the band The Move. So I had the opportunity to work with them, and also the late Bernie Nolan, which was fabulous. So yeah, Blood Brothers holds a special place for me, certainly. That is just such a great show.
And when you look at soap operas, when they make the transition to the pop world, some of the most notable soap opera actors, they have really good voices, don't they?
Yeah, I think way back, sort of 80s, maybe 90s or whatever, there was an element of that happening. I mean, I could think Michelle Gale would be an example. And I think I was keen, maybe, I mean, not to necessarily think, oh, here's a soap actor doing a song, because I've always had a sort of musical background. I sort of started off with music. It's how I got my equity card, in fact, with our duo. We used to tour around pubs and clubs in the north of England, but yeah, so music's always been there. And then, you know, drama school happened and other acting gigs happened, television parts happened. So yeah, it's all sort of gone hand in hand in many ways.
It's good that you have many facets as well, all-round entertainer, performer.
Well, thank you. It's nice just to have the facility to keep creative, and particularly challenging time we've all had in the last sort of 18 months.
I've always wanted to ask, you know, when you're on stage, whether you're treading the boards, you're performing with the band, have you ever been in a scenario where you've kind of forgotten the lyrics or the lines? Is it quite hard to remember all those words when you have so many materials to remember?
It's interesting, because obviously with live theatre, you get one chance at it. And inevitably, there have been occasions where, you know, you're operating in the moment. Sometimes something may go slightly differently or whatever. But because, like for example, I did a UK tour of the Full Monty, and I was on the road with that for 9 months. So you get into a pattern. So, but because you're doing it sort of 8 times a week, I think there's a muscle memory that kicks in. So even if you think maybe something may have gone a little askew, you have the facility to hopefully back it up a little bit.
And I'm guessing if all else fails, you can always improv or ad-lib, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. There was one particular time I was in a stage show. It was a pantomime, actually, Beauty and the Beast. And I had to wear this prosthetic, and I had these huge tusks. And what happened is I walked on for my entrance, and it fell off. And I thought, what am I going to do in this situation? So I turned to the character who was the butler, who was called Bottles, and I said, "Bottles, can you get me a dental appointment, please?" Which obviously wasn't in the script, but you know, it went down really well.
Fantastic. And back to Man in the Moon. We're going to play that on the show now for our listeners, so they're in for a treat. Thanks for joining me, and just telling myself and my listeners a bit about your background as well. It's always good to have a feel for the kind of personality of the guest musician I'm playing on the airwaves.
Sure.
Right, Stephen Donald, there we have it. Thanks for joining me, and very best of luck with this record, Man in the Moon. Stephen Donald playing now.
Thank you.